Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I like this cartoon because I think it encapsulates the very essence of what the people of Zimbabwe are going through right now. It depicts Mnangagwa sitting on the throne, being carried to 2030 by the people. As one can see from the dressing, extremely poor people. So the question then would be, if these people are so poor and miserable, why would they be the ones cheering and carrying Mnangagwa, claiming that they want Mnangagwa to stay until 2030, beyond his fixed maximum 2 terms? The truth of the matter is, they have no choice in the matter. These people are coerced using the stick and the carrot, and in the case of Zimbabwe, the case of the rural people, it's mostly the stick. And the stick has been getting bigger and bigger ever since the country's independence in 1980. The question one has got then to ask is, it's now 45 years since the country's independence. Yes, the Zanu PF leaders are corrupt and murderous thugs, but surely the people of Zimbabwe must have had an opportunity or two during those 45 years to end the dictatorship. So why has it lasted for 45 years? The honest truth is, we did have the opportunity to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. The best chance of which came in 2008 to 2013, when SADC forced the ruling party Zanu PF to sign the global political agreement which gave birth to the GNU, Government of National Unity. The primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms, to stop Zanu PF rigging elections. So the question one has got to ask is, what happened? Well, the truth is, we failed to implement even one token reform during that period. And one of those people who were given that opportunity to implement the reform was Komichi. He is now the leader of the MDC. Here is Komichi trying to explain that he is going to stand up and organize to make sure that Zanu PF does not amend the constitution to allow Mnangagwa to stay in office until 2030. The first clip I would like to play will focus on the period of the GNU, 2008 to 2013. Just listen to what he has to say about that period.
Under the leadership of Morgan Tsvangirai, Gibson Swanda, Isaac Matungu, and many others, and waged the mass democratic struggle for the freedoms of Zimbabwe. A lot of people died throughout the process. A lot of people were arrested, tortured. So many things happened which were against humanity under the governance of Zanu PF. It didn't go in vain. In 2018, a constitution was then adopted around February 2013. After the Zimbabweans assembled all over parts of Zimbabwe to contribute towards their sacrosanct document, the constitution. In that constitution, we had certain clauses that we said these clauses will never be tampered with. Those clauses that touched the hearts of the Zimbabweans. It was Section 4, Bill of Rights. Section 16, Land. Section 91, 95, and 328. To make sure that we shall never, ever again have a long-distance lead. It was to...
Well, I'll stop it at that. He goes on to explain. But the truth of the matter is, the primary purpose of the 2008 to 2013 GNU was to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. He is making a big song and dance about the new constitution. But when it comes to reforms, they fail to implement even one reform. And as for the constitution itself, he mentioned, for instance, at the beginning there, the Bill of Rights, one of which is the freedom to hold peaceful demonstrations. These have been denied. The Constitution itself says there should be free, fair, and credible elections. Before it was even amended, the Constitution was approved in March 2013, and the first election after that was in July 2013, which Zanu PF went on to blatantly rig. SADC leaders told Morgan Tsvangirai and these fellow MDC T and MDC N leaders that they should not go into the elections without implementing at least the electoral reforms to make sure that that process was free, fair, and credible. They were ignored. This has been at the very heart of why Zimbabwe is in this mess. We cannot pretend that these MDC leaders carried out the tasks that were entrusted on them. For 5 years, they had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. What Mugabe did at the onset of the GNU was to bribe Morgan Tsvangirai and company with the trappings of high office and with their snouts in the feeding trough, they forgot about the reforms. By the end of the GNU, they had not implemented even one token reform. That is the problem. And to hide their failing, they participated in the 2013 elections, even after being warned that it would be folly to do so, because they did not want to admit that during the GNU they failed to implement even one token reform. Indeed, I've often shown on this platform a quotation from David Coulter, where he admitted that the 2013 election process was so flawed and so illegal that the logical step would have been to withdraw. But they did not withdraw because they also knew that Zanu PF was giving away a few gravy train seats to entice the opposition to participate. And that they found irresistible. And so they've been participating in these flawed elections out of greed, knowing fully well Zanu PF was rigging, and knowing fully well that by participating, they're giving Zanu PF legitimacy. In 2018, Mnangagwa went one step further. He created this supernumeral body called POLAD, Political Actors Dialogue, in which all the candidates of the presidential race who had participated in that election were asked to join if they would swear that the election process was free, fair, and credible, and Mnangagwa was legitimate. A number of them did swear publicly. And as a reward for being in Pollard, they got $60,000 twin cab trucks and a few other packs. Mnangagwa knew that 2023 there will be a flood of candidates who would want to participate with an eye of joining Pollard. And so he introduced a requirement that to be a presidential candidate, one had to pay a stiff $20,000 nomination fee, which was non-refundable. Many of the candidates would have been candidates could not even raise it. And that's why at the end of the day, there were only 11 candidates. But nonetheless, the requirement did achieve what he wanted to do. Entice the opposition to participate, knowing fully well that by participating in numbers, they will give Zanu PF legitimacy. And that is exactly what happened. I think the third point that we must also consider here is that the opposition really do not give a damn about the long-suffering ordinary Zimbabweans. They participated knowing that that will give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate the Zanu PF dictatorship. But they didn't care about that. And hence, some of them, such as Nelson Chamisa, was prepared to say an idiotic lie, such as, I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, knowing fully well that he had not done any such thing, just to con people to participate so that he and his friends can get a few more of those preferential seats. The third point that we cannot ignore here, the fourth point, is the very fact that Zimbabweans themselves have turned out to be incredibly ignorant, naive, and gullible. It's not rocket science. They have risked everything to elect people like Morgan Komichi into power these last 25 years. They should have understood the primary purpose of the Morgan Komichi and company was to implement the reforms. And after 25 years, not even one token reform implemented. Why have these people never stopped to ask the likes of Morgan Komichi, Nelson Chamisa, Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, why they failed to implement even one token reform? Ignorance, naivety, and being gullible. And these opposition leaders have taken full advantage of that. And so it's a full circle. We are in this sorry state where we have got Mnangagwa and he is able to con people into believing he is the real thing. They should even allow him to stay over and above his 2 maximum term limit. It is a crazy world, but one of our own making. I would like now to play a clip where Morgan Komichi is explaining what MDC, the party he leads, is going to do regarding this drive by Mnangagwa to amend the constitution so that he could stay in power until 2030. Let's just listen to him.
Number of people that are living in poverty. More than 6.6 million live in abject poverty in this country. 49% of the Zimbabweans today live in abject poverty. And you cannot appreciate, you cannot accept this kind of a situation to prevail. We cannot at all allow that. Unemployment in Zimbabwe is 85%. And you want to add 2 more years. We can't accept that. We cannot at all.
Do this for flat belly at 60s. This is day
My
17
apologies.
of doing nothing but this chair workout challenge every morning. I am following the workout plan on the Yoga Go.
I'm sure you do not want the workout plan.
We need to make sure that the people of Zimbabwe go for elections in 2028. People of Zimbabwe must go for elections in 2028. We can't accept any day further than that. We need to make sure that as Zimbabweans, come hell, come thunder, we will stand against any violation of our constitution. Even by a single day, you can't fall. So 2028, elections must be called. And our people must enjoy that benefit. So right now, as we are here as MDC, we are going to join the other members of our society who are against any attempt to run away from 2028 elections. We are going to join other people, and we want the people to come together so that we defend ourselves. We will not allow it as MDC. We want the people to be given the opportunity to vote in 2028. No more time to play, no more time to joke. Otherwise, as we go, we are prepared for anything. We are prepared for any penalty. We are prepared for anything that comes to us. We don't mind. If it means we will perish, we'll be arrested, we'll be poisoned, let it be. Jesus Christ died for us of all.
Well, I think one will be tempted to applaud that. But we've got to read between the lines. He is now prepared to even die. And yet, during the GNU, when they had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms, which would have ended Zanu PF dictatorship, he and his colleagues forgot about the reforms. They failed to implement even one reform. But to come back to this issue, people should understand that as much as the challenge is to stop Mnangagwa amending the constitution to allow him to stay for another 2 more years, we have got to understand, how are we going to stop him? It is worrying that Morgan Komichi, like so many of his other colleagues in the opposition camp, have been calling for, we will sacrifice everything to make sure we get a no vote. The truth of the matter is, Zanu PF has got all the opportunities to rig the process. And we all know from the past that if you participate in a flawed process, you give the process legitimacy. So here we are. We are going to participate in the referendum, knowing fully well that Zanu PF has got all the trump cards. Indeed, the first process for this amendment will be for Parliament, the House of Assembly, to vote 2/3 for the amendment, and then the Senate to do the same thing. Zanu PF has already corrupted the opposition and is guaranteed of getting the 2/3 in the House of Assembly and 2/3 in the Senate. The next stage will be tabling the referendum before the people. And unlike the election in 2023, for instance, where there will be outsiders to observe the process, there will be no outsiders to observe the process. We know SADC and the AU condemned the 2023 elections as flawed and illegal. Ask yourself, what amendments have been implemented to make sure that the referendum process is free, fair, and credible? The answer is not even one amendment. So in other words, we are going into an electoral process knowing that Zanu PF is rigging the process. I think the more rational position is to accept SADC and the AU's reports that said the 2023 elections were flawed and illegal. And to say, well, we can't keep on participating in flawed and illegal processes only to give the vote rigging party legitimacy. Zanu PF, as the government of the day, has got the legal obligation to make sure that these processes, be they election or referendum, they are free, fair, and credible, and the result reflects the true wishes of the people of Zimbabwe. I think we need to stand up and take the regime to task on that point. We have got a report here by SADC and the AU saying the 2023 elections were not free, fair, and credible. We cannot, therefore, participate in another very important electoral process when we know that the process is not guaranteed to be free, fair, and credible. I believe that SADC and the AU will refuse to accept the result of that referendum if the people of Zimbabwe stood firm and refused to participate. Contrary to what our friend here and his colleagues in the opposition are trying to talk people into do, to participate. Do not participate in a process that you know is so flawed, so illegal, that the logical position is not to participate. Particularly when you know that if you participate, you give the process legitimacy. We have been conned to participate in these flawed processes before. I think it's high time we say to ourselves that enough is enough. We are not going to participate in a flawed process. We should not be participating in an electoral process which is the equivalent of the turkeys voting for Christmas when they already know that the menu for Christmas is already fixed and they are on it. Those who control the electoral process already want the result to be taken for Christmas. Those who are in total control of the process already know the result. They want the constitution amended. All they want us to do is to participate and give that process legitimacy. I think we should not be so gullible, so naive, and let them have it their way so easily. Whether we like to admit it or not, the truth of the matter is Zanu PF is not as invincible as the party itself would like us to believe, that's the opposition would like us to believe. In fact, I can honestly say that Zanu PF is led by corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical thugs, buffoons who have blundered from pillar to post. Zimbabwe is an incredibly rich country, and yet look at what they have done. They've all but destroyed it. Only a buffoon would do that. The challenge then is, if they are buffoons, why is it they have remained in power for 45 years and counting? Well, one of the reasons why is that we also have the misfortune of having corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless opposition members who have sold out at the first opportunity to do so during the GNU, and now are keeping up the pretense that they can still deliver change in Zimbabwe and will call us to participate in a flawed process, one after another, only to perpetuate our own suffering. I think the people of Zimbabwe themselves have to accept that they have got to wake up to that reality, that our opposition friends are not going to help us. And all this pretense is not going to accomplish anything. I've got Tina there with a comment that I think we need to follow Blessed Gesa. Well, I think that one is in a position that some people have argued, but I've dismissed it myself for the simple reason that the Blessed Gezi is a war veteran who were involved in the 2017 military coup, and their solution was to remove Mugabe and replace him with Morgan Tsvangirai. And this time, they are pushing to remove Mnangagwa to replace him with Chiwenga. I think the people of Zimbabwe should be smart enough to realize that this is just a vicious cycle. Replacing one dictator with another has not solved anything. And in this particular case, we should have learned something from 2017 and be clear of what we want. And what we want is to dismantle the Zanu PF dictatorship and not allow ourselves to be sidetracked by people like Blessed Geza. Let me rest assure you, if we side with him and we manage to stop Mnangagwa amending the constitution, and of course his strategy is no different from our friend here, Morgan Komichi, i.e. that we should participate in the flawed referendum and campaign for a no. And my argument on that one is if you participate in a process that Zanu PF has already got the results, and all they want you to do is to participate to give it legitimacy. And if you participate in your millions, you have, per se, accepted the results. And that is why we must reject that argument. But the other thing also is that if we were to team up with the likes of Blessed Gezi and his war veterans, and for the sake of argument, Zanu PF fails to push through that amendment, they would be expecting us to go into the elections without any reforms. And participating in the 2028 elections with no reforms is suicidal, because just as much as Zanu PF can rig the referendum, they will rig those elections too, just as they've rigged the 2023 elections. Our position should be very clear. We don't want to participate in rigged processes. We want elections to be free, fair, and credible, and the results should be no doubt at all that it is the democratic wishes of the people of Zimbabwe. And that means picking our teams, people who work with carefully. And so to come back to Morgan Komichi, he sold out during the GNU. He and his MDC friends failed to implement even one token reform. And they have been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy out of greed. They will want us to participate in a flawed referendum, even if they genuinely want a no. But if they get a no, it doesn't matter. Maybe for people like Komichi, who is not in an elected position right now, the motive would be he wants the 2028 elections so that he can get another chance to get a seat on the gravy train seat. But that is not what we are interested in. Just a few individuals in the opposition occupying gravy train seats. What we want is to end this case of rigged elections and bad governance. And at the present moment, that means refusing to participate in a flawed referendum, and refusing to participate in a flawed election process afterwards, and demanding that there should be democratic reforms to ensure these processes are free, fair, and credible. We have got a trump card up our sleeve ourselves. SADC and the AU condemned the 2023 elections as flawed and illegal. We must pressure Zanu PF to make sure that they put that right first before we go into any electoral process. Thank you very much, those who were able to participate, and have a good night.